Okay, we're covering lesson 2. This is engineering and how that fits into this space unit we're talking about. And really what we want to cover, and it doesn't go too far into it, is the engineering design cycle. So the engineering design cycle starts when you have a problem. And here's my example of a problem. A long time ago, probably, 8 years ago, I first got my hands on a metal water bottle that had a plastic cap. And, people didn't really have them before that. Nobody had made one. But the problem was, as I put the cap on the water bottle, the little tiny threads, they look like a bolt threads, would try to go in this way. And then it would kind of wreck the threads a little bit. And I'd try again and it would go in this way. And it would wreck the threads a little bit more. Eventually, I'd eventually get it to go on. But every single time I would wreck the threads a little bit more. Eventually I could just pop the cap on and pop the cap off. And is that any good at all? I mean, that's not what a cap is for, is it? You don't want it to pop on and off. So I had another problem. The threads on my plastic cap were being wrecked by the metal water bottle. The metal was much harder, everything else. They needed to engineer a better water bottle. And so what I have today, now this is a few years later, somebody actually went through this engineering design cycle and they made a cap that's got these nice big thick threads that can't go in sideways at all. This bottle's been working for a long time, and this is much better. This works better. This hasn't been wrecked. I can use it easily. It doesn't go on sideways. But without re-engineering and redesigning it, this would still be that piece of garbage I had before. Okay? So to begin the engineering design cycle, you end up brainstorming. You brainstorm different solutions to your problem. So you have to say, well, maybe if the cap had bigger threads. Maybe if the water bottle had a much bigger mouth. That was a tiny mouth before. Maybe if it's made of stainless steel. Different ideas for how to make it better. What do you do after you brainstorm then? Yes? You skipped a step. Nope, you have to design it. You have to make it, you have to design, you have to say, okay, we're going to make threads that are this thick, and we are going to do this. Come up with a design. After you design it, you do what? Build it. You got to build it before you can test it, right? You design it, you say, here's what it's going to look like. All right, let's build it. Then you test it, of course. And then you're done, right? Good, all of you. You evaluate your results. You say, okay, this one person was testing our water bottle and his threads got messed up after like a week. These are pretty poor results. We are going to have to brainstorm some solutions to that problem. And what else can fit in here at this point? If there's new technology, if there's a way to make a water bottle, if there's a way to make a space station, if there's a way to make something lighter because of new technology, or faster, or whatever else, this new technology is going to get shoved in here too. Okay. We could make this more complex, but let's keep it this simple. Brainstorm, design, build, test, evaluate the results. Back to brainstorm. And if there's new technology, of course, that can be a part of the brainstorming process. So, we have this. This is a cycle. This has been used for the smartboard. This has been used for the drywall, for the lights. Pretty much everything in this room besides us has been engineered with a cycle kind of like this. So the one example I want us to go through is the space stations over time. So the space stations, we didn't start with this big, awesome space station that we have now. We started with something more like this. The Salyut 1. This made by the Soviet Union, 1971, and it was designed for just like people can live there for 3 months, and then it's going to be done. Now, were the United States and Russia friends at this point? Definitely not. And so the Russians weren't sharing what they were learning here. The United States made their own. The United States made Skylab, and that was made for a few years of use. Right? So, Salute got a couple of months. People died like after using it. There's a whole good story on that. Skylab we used for a few years. But as they used these, do you think they started realizing the different problems that they were coming up against? Absolutely. They were saying, wow, we need to figure out how to recycle the water because we are just hauling tons of water up there, and then that's a lot of weight that we have to haul up every time we go. What if we could recycle it? There's probably 1,000 things. We need to find out how to wash people's hair, for example. Well, you guys know about the Cold War. In one case, the Soviet Union and the United States actually worked together. Okay? And that was during this time period when they made the Mir space station. The Russian cosmonauts and the astronauts were working on this together. So Mir was operational for 15 years. Only about 12 of it was inhabited by people. But Mir is Mir look bigger than the first two? It does. This is just one piece. They shot into space. They climbed inside for a couple of months, and then they climbed out and went home. Pretty much the same thing here. This looks like one piece with a capsule that they came to it in, and then they leave. Whereas the Mir, they started figuring out how to put many, many pieces together. And they were learning how to do that better and better. Well, everything they learned in the Mir was put to use when they built the International Space Station. This last one. It was started in 1998, but it was designed to last 20 years. It first came up about year 2000, and so it's actually supposed to be over at about 2020. So in the year 2020, we might be talking about how this is the last mission for the International Space Station. Now, if I had to guess, I would say they're going to let it go longer than that because they're not going to just want to give it up. But as of right now, the plan is in 2020, it's the mission for this big, awesome thing is over. So the last thing, we can see the engineering design cycle, design, build, test, evaluate results, brainstorm more. We can see that cycle right here in these different stations. Then you can Skylab, then Mir, then the International Space Station. You can see that right here. And what I'm going to have you do right now is discuss how does the progression of space stations show the engineering design process.